Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, what's up, my brother? My sober coffee loving brother.
I know. Hey, we got a beautiful day ahead of us. I mean, yesterday worked out well for me. How about you?
What was yesterday?
Yesterday was another sober day.
Oh, it was fantastic then. It
All
was
right,
absolutely fantastic. Just a little behind the counter because, sometimes real life doesn't always align with these episodes. We're in the Chicagoland area, and just because we never know when these episodes are going to drop, right? So, but yesterday, all the forecast, and in fact, as of 10 a.m. yesterday, which is Friday, because we're in the coffee shop early here Saturday, it was supposed to get 11 inches of snow here in Chicago.
No, more than that. I saw a forecast that said 16.
Oh, my gosh. Guess how much we got?
Yeah, less than a quarter of an inch, yeah.
Less than a quarter? I got nothing in my house. I saw some flurries flying around. Right. Nothing hit the ground.
But isn't it funny? Because that is life. You anticipate something. You're worried about something that you have no idea if it's really going to happen. And look what happened. It didn't transpire anything like the forecasters predicted.
You know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
It reminds me of COVID.
Oh, yeah, right.
It reminds me of COVID, all these major corporations and even small ones.
Oh, sure.
They spend tons of money on flying people around, doing the 5-year business plan, the 3-year, 2-year, 1-year, 6-month business plan. Right. And then COVID comes and
all those plans are out the window.
Right. I'm not saying don't plan, but I also think it's okay to realize that 80% of the stuff that goes on inside your head is not going to come true.
Right. Yep.
So,
hey, so listen, I know we usually do behind the counter or housekeeping, but we got a table for 3 today, and I want to get right to it because I'm super excited. I'm super excited for a table 3. So the intro says 2 guys on their own path to recovery. Well, today we got 2 guys and a gal on their own path to recovery. And this morning I'm introducing Lisa. Lisa, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Hi, Lisa.
And Lisa,
timing of this is perfect. This is my favorite time of day now that I'm sober.
I know, right? It's funny. Glenn likes to say he used to curse the mornings. Now he craves them.
I love that.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. Lisa, do everyone a favor and pronounce your last name because I read it a bunch of times in the book, but pronounce it.
It's pronounced Avellyra.
Okay, good. In my brain, I did that right. Yay!
Oh, good.
That doesn't happen often. My brain and right usually aren't in the same sentence, but so Lisa is an author. She's part of our series of authors, and that we like to have on the show. And we connected via social media or somehow, some way, the website. And she said, "So I got this book." And I kind of glanced, and it was like, "Get me to the Abbey." And I'm like, I right away my brain started thinking the Beatles, right, and Abbey, and right, and so I'm thinking, all right, what's this? And a lot of authors that we've had on, and we're so grateful that we did. They talk about what they're doing today in their road to recovery. So we've had some great authors that've got great approaches to recovery, and that was not what I experienced when I picked up Get Me to the Abbey. I wasn't expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I'm learning to not have expectations, but what I found was a story that I so connected to. And I could go on for hours talking about the book because I really enjoyed it. But I'm going to say 2 things, and then I'm going to turn it over to the author, Lisa.
Okay.
But there's 2 things that really jumped out at me. The one thing that jumped out at me about Get Me to the Abbey was that it was a real story, and a story that I so connected with. And she had me at the first line, which is, I didn't care about anything except vodka. So I'm like, okay, I can relate to this. And then the entire book was relatable. The last thing I want to use as a segue is in the foreword to the book, it says, "This book is for those still suffering the stranglehold and despair of addiction. May they find Abbey." And I just love that. I loved your story. I loved the journey. I loved the personal part of it. So why don't we kick off just by letting you just share a little bit about your background and talking a little bit about your journey, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you this morning.
Oh, absolutely.
And having coffee with me.
Our pleasure.
Love it.
So I am a Midwesterner. I was born and raised in Iowa, the youngest of 5 girls in a Catholic household. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. And I went to college, and I lived in Wisconsin for 26 years, a great drinking state. So I fit.
Wait, aren't
I
they
fit
all?
Right in.
Aren't they all great drinking states? I've never been
That's true.
in a state that I didn't care to drink in.
Yes. So I was just a lifelong drinker. I drank in college. I drank after college. It's like I continued drinking almost the same way in my post-college adult years as I did in college. I was always looking for that opportunity to drink. And like all of us, it just, after 40 years of drinking, it caught up with me. And the last year of my drinking, it was the end of 2016, my mother died, and something just happened inside me where I just gave up. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to live without drinking, and I knew I couldn't live. So I couldn't sustain how I was drinking. I couldn't function. I wasn't going to work. So I decided the easiest path for me was just to not live anymore. And that was my objective. But I failed at that objective. And so the beginning of the book starts at my rock bottom when I was found unconscious. So it's almost like the beginning of the book could have been the end of my story. But it turned out to be the beginning of my story. And now 6 years later, and actually 6 years ago this month, I was probably still in the hospital, but I was in the Abbey during the month of March. So during the month of March, I think of March Madness basketball.
Oh yeah, you are the big basketball fan, right?
Yep. And I also think of that month in the Abbey.
Yes.
When we had brackets while I was there at the Abbey, which is a great example of the joy that I started to feel again with my fellow Abbeyites. And that is something that, talk about unexpected.
Right.
I never expected to find that kind of friendship and fellowship and laughter in treatment, and I did.
Right. And that's what the book unfolds, that story of really hope and the connectivity. It's so funny because, like you said, you started the book at the bottom, right, at the rock bottom, and I connected to it. So because that's where my drinking led me to. I didn't want to go on with life. I didn't want to die, but guess what? I did want to die because I was just in this cycle, and it was tragic, right? And that's how the book starts out. And I'm like, oh man, I so connect with that. But then it's a story of hope, but it's also a reminder to us of the dangerous drug that we deal with, and the pitfall and the devastation and death of relapse. And so yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree with you more that it needed to start somewhere. But you entwined this story of hope, and you talk about the Abbey. So talk a little bit about the Abbey and how you got introduced to the Abbey.
Okay. So I was in the hospital for a week, and since my plan was foiled, I knew, and my sisters were not going to allow me to go back to my apartment. And so I had accepted the fact that I had to return to treatment because this would have been my second time. So as the medical team was proposing options, they brought up this place called the Abbey in Bettendorf, Iowa, which is an hour east of where I lived. Where I still live, Iowa City, Iowa. And I wasn't having anything to do with that. Had set my mind on going to treatment in Iowa City. And then they spring this new idea on me. I mean, I felt like I was cooperating, and then they spring this on me.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, oh,
that's
boy.
what you get. That's what you get for
scammed.
Yeah, right. You got scammed, right?
Yeah. I was defiant. They started talking about AA again while I was in the hospital, and I was starting to dig in again, and the stubbornness was coming out again. But I made a phone call just to appease everyone, and as I describe it in the book, there was this voice, and the voice was so full of serenity and kindness. That phone call, it won me over. It's like something came over me, and a decision was made for me. And because of that voice, I decided, okay, everyone's right. I am going to go to the Abbey. And
Lisa,
that's how it happened.
Lisa,
I'd never
sounds like
heard of it
surrender to
before.
me.
It sounds like surrender to me. Lisa, can we just park there for a second? Because I walked away from that moment when you talked about the voice. And I really, I closed the book and I really pondered that, because I heard voices in my disease when I was really out there. And I heard voices, but I debunked them. I'm like, nope, I'm going on my path. But then there was a voice that came from within me the morning I surrendered in October 2018, and it was a voice of surrender. But it was soothing. There was something soothing about that surrendering moment. I just love the fact, and I'll let you get back to your story, but I love the fact that we can be a voice to somebody else. We can be that voice, and that's what I took away from that. You picked up the phone. This voice brought soothe and calm to you, and acceptance and surrender. All that thing with just a gentle voice, and we can be the voice to other people. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I love that and the way you spelled that out.
And that's how I feel about the book. I wanted to voice and describe my experience for others to relate to and to gain some comfort from and hope.
Right.
So I think that was probably like the beginning of signs of things. Signs were starting to pop up. I didn't recognize that as a sign at the time, though.
Right.
But so I go to the Abbey. My sister drives me to the Abbey, and you guys are familiar with Notre Dame because it's right down the road.
We're Domers. We're Domers.
Okay. Oh, you are Domers. Okay. So I had seen pictures of the Abbey, but small screens on my phone, a computer printout. We drive up to the Abbey, and we drive down the street and turn into the driveway, and my sister Martha, she just stopped the car, and we both looked up, and there's this big gold dome.
Looks like the Abbey.
Yeah, right. Wow.
It just stopped us cold right there. She stopped the car. We looked at it. We looked at each other. My dad went to Notre Dame. Oh. So I went to my first Notre Dame game when I was in 7th grade. And the Golden Dome, it's a symbol of Notre Dame. You can see it from Interstate 80. And we grew up with Notre Dame football, with my dad cursing. Well, he didn't curse, but
he screamed.
He screamed. He screamed. He would get up and walk out of the room.
I had a friend who had no voice on Monday mornings. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. He would come in hoarse, hoarse.
So Notre Dame we grew up with it, and there was this dome. So that was a second big sign. Mm-hmm. And just walking into the halls of the Abbey, I grew up Catholic, so it was hushed. It was when they gave me a tour and I walked into the old chapel that was untouched. It was not modernized. I something washed over me at that moment too. And I remember I started crying. And so I knew right away there was something special about this place.
I love it. I love it. I love the fact that the second part of the book, if you will, talks about the bond. And again, I so related coming out of rehab. There is a bond that I still hold tightly with the people from my 28-day program because we were warriors with the same mission. And some of them, the story didn't turn out well. But some we still bond and talk a little bit about that because that's such a big part of the book. And to me, it talks to the fellowship, the importance of doing this journey together. Right? We got into near death all by ourselves, but recovery is all about this camaraderie, this fellowship, this accountability. Talk a little bit about your experience at the Abbey with the group that you so connected with.
So I was only one other female, and the rest were men. Mm-hmm. And the counselors kept saying, "We're trying to get more females. We're trying to get more females." But as they kept saying that, I was like, "I'm okay with these guys."
I don't want more females.
That's right. Drama, right?
And I like sports.
Yeah, right.
So I had something in common with them, and I remember, I won't talk about it in too much detail, but it was, I think the second night there, we had music therapy. And something happened. There was a double entendre, and we all were laughing so hard. I mean, the counselor came in and asked, "What is going on in here?" And after that music therapy session, something happened where it just kind of changed the dynamic with us. In a good way, where we had this thing that we talked about for the rest of the time when I was at the Abbey, our inside joke.
Right.
And it bonded us. Yeah. And because of that bond, I was comfortable talking honestly about how I felt, about my drinking, about the darkness that I felt those last few months while drinking. And I think it affected everyone the same way. We all just opened up to each other.
Right. Yep. No, it's a fantastic story of redemption and hope.
Yeah. So, Lisa, how long were you at the Abbey?
I was there for a month, 4 weeks.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think back to some of my stints. I mean, there was one. I mean, it was probably the most relaxed, hilarious, funny time I've had in my life.
Right.
Just because I had no outside pressure in the world. Right. I put everything on hold, and I was going to focus on sobriety in my 28-day program. And I still have relationships. I mean, that was 10 years ago or so, and I still have relationships today.
Right.
From that. I mean, I can remember snorting the milk out of my nose. Sure. I was laughing so hard. It was great. The community and just camaraderie. But Lisa, I love what you said. First of all, when you were beginning to share, you said you gave up, right? And you didn't want to live anymore. Reminded me of kind of the space in my head where I think of the movie Leaving Las Vegas, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that, but I mean, I am Nick Cage. That actually is attractive to me, right? Going to Vegas, getting 50 bottles of booze in my little motel, $28 a night hotel room, and just living until the end, right? But what I loved how you described that, and I just wanted to underline it here before we run out of time, but is that what you realized was what you perceived to be your end,
yes,
was really turned out to be your beginning.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
And that just really, because I can relate to that. When I hit my bottom, when I didn't have any other options, when all of my, all of Glenn's ideas were running out or proved to be futile yet again, that was my end of Glenn. And that was the beginning of sobriety, of surrender and sobriety for me.
Right. Now, are you, let me kind of fast forward. Tell me a little bit about your hope. Tell me about Lisa today. I know about your journey. Tell me about Lisa today. Are you actively involved in your recovery, and if so, how?
So Lisa today, so it's been 6 years, and I consider this a new phase of my life. The Iowa City AA community has been fantastic. They helped to reinforce what I had received at the Abbey.
Oh, I love that.
And although I don't go to meetings as often as I used to, I still have friends in that I made in those early days in the Iowa City community. Mm-hmm. And I think the way today that I celebrate my recovery is just every day trying to live a life of peace and kindness, and share that everywhere I go, at work, when I go to the grocery store. I really don't do that much anymore because I discovered I'm an ambivert, and I drank it helped me to be around people for long periods of time. Right. But now I realize that I can only be around people for large groups for a couple of hours, and then it kind of there's an inner barometer that's like, I got to get out of here. I just need my alone time.
I'm a homebody. I get it.
So I cherish my alone time, and when I am out in public, I just want to share what I have gained from my sobriety with everyone I come into contact with.
You want to be the voice?
I do. I do. I want it to be contagious.
Right. Yep. I love it. And so let's talk a little bit about the how people can find you on social media, how they can find your book. Again, if it doesn't ooze out of me, highly recommend. Great read. It's called Get Me to the Abbey, and tell people how they can get the book and get in touch with you if they need to.
So I have a website, Lisa Ave, LISAAVE.com.
And we'll put that in the resource room.
Okay. And so you can get it through the publisher, Little Creek Press, which is a small publishing company in Mineral Point, Wisconsin.
I'm sorry, you couldn't get Big Creek wouldn't publish for you, so you went to Little Creek?
Little Creek Press.
No, you get it. Big Creek wouldn't publish it for you.
Lisa, you have to excuse him sometimes.
So you went to Little Creek. I get it.
See, you are funny.
Don't forget. People say he's the funny one. Don't forget.
You are funny. And Barnes and Nobles, and also Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, Amazon. People have heard of Amazon, right?
I think it's a fad. I don't think it's going to. That's why I got mine. I got mine from Amazon.
I do have a couple of book readings in the Chicago area at the end of March.
Do me a favor. Send me that information. I will post it, and I'll send it out in our newsletter.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And wait, when is that? Because I'd love to come meet you.
Oh, that would be so special. March 25th, I'm up in Kenosha, which isn't far from Kenosha, Wisconsin, at Blue House Books.
Okay.
And then March 26th, which is a Sunday, I'm in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
That's really close to me. Close like an hour, but I can do that. All right. Okay. You never know. We'll talk offline.
Oh, so that would just... Oh.
Again, this book is for the still suffering, the stronghold and despair of addiction. May they find an Abbey. Thank you for being a voice.
That sounds great, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
All right,
it's been a pleasure.
Take care
Lisa.
now.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.
Stay safe in the city of Chicago.